because Tuesday is election day. We now have 6 more Tuesdays.
Oh my God, just 6.
6 Tuesdays.
6 weeks?
Until the election. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, calling from a 210 area code. Who's this?
Good afternoon, Sam and Emma. This is John from San Antonio.
John from San Antonio. Good to hear from you. As you know, John, we are now 63 days away from the election. Were you aware of that?
Yes, that was my first line, but yeah, you've said it many times, so that's great.
Well, you've said
but it's more than 6.
You said that we are 60. You said that we are 63 days away from the election many times.
No, I mean, I guess I had it. You said it, and I was, I had it. That was my opening line, but you have said it many times.
Well, my point being that we're only 63 days ahead of the election today, not like in a week or a week ago.
Right, that's correct. More than 6 weeks, though. But
how many weeks?
Okay, so
I did bad math. It's 8 weeks.
I would think.
8 weeks.
Yeah, John,
Okay.
I get it. I'm bad at math, but you're better. There we go.
Yeah, so I'll be on the Letter Hack show, YouTube show tonight, going into the details about the elections in November. Yeah. So when my last call into this show from 2 weeks ago was clipped, has received 392,000 views so far.
All right.
You're playing the game called capitalism.
Yeah. So my main bailiwick that I think is underappreciated is that the battle for the trifecta, which is the presidency, the Senate, and the House, is the closest it's been in the modern era. And some may argue in the history of our country, considering the presidential forecasting was in its infancy in the early 20th century, and most House races in the 18th and 19th century were not held in November, but at different times in different states over a 2-year period. The closest election I've seen is the 2000 election, when the Republicans held 54 seats in the Senate, which was reduced to a 50-50 split, with independent Jim Jeffords first caucusing with the Republicans and then changing the balance of power when he switched to the Democrats a few months later, giving them the majority. In the House, going into the election, the Republicans held 223 seats, and after the election held 222 caucusing members. Right now, the Democrats hold 51 caucusing Senate seats, and the Republicans have 221 House seats, not counting those seats that are empty and safe seats. Kamala Harris continues to improve her numbers, and now leads in all swing state by slight margins, according to my polling averages. In the last 2 weeks, she increased her polling numbers by an average of 0.9% in swing states. Let's go over each swing state. I'm going to give you the Harris lead, followed by the improvement in the last 2 weeks in my polling averages. In Wisconsin, Harris leads.
Now, John, hold on for 1 second. First off, I want to say I hope that when you said that what's underappreciated is not you. We totally appreciate you. I hope you understand that. A. B. When you say your polling averages, for those who are uninitiated and don't necessarily catch you on the letter hack, which apparently is, the first thing out of the gate you want to talk about, are there polls that you exclude that, let's say, other top polling aggregator sites include? Like, why is your aggregation different than others, or is it?
Yeah, everybody has a different, they put weights on certain polls. I mean, basically, there are a lot of polls that are made by Republicans and Democratic pollsters, and they're very biased. Right now, we see a repeat of what's happening in the 2022 elections, which are Republicans are flooding the zone. And that's why I think that you see people like Nate Silver, who actually say that Trump has I'm trying to find it, a 56.7% chance of winning, while most of the other aggregators say that, almost all of the other ones say that Harris has about a 57% chance of winning. And so yeah, it's different with every state and with every aggregator. but basically, I think that the good aggregators, have similar numbers, and so that's why the consistency is there about that 57% chance that Harris has right now.
Why do you think, let's say, Nate Silver will take polls that you think are sort of junk polls?
I don't think he's learned anything from the 2022 election when he predicted that Republicans were going to win 230 seats because he thought that he counted all of these polls, and G. Elliott Morris, who was the pollster at The Economist, had his model, and now he did much better in House races. I believe he predicted 225 House seats, and now he's running 538, and he's doing a much better job than Silver's doing.
Okay, one more question about the process on this. Do you think that he really didn't learn anything, or that the lessons that he was taking were slightly different than the ones that you would assume he would take?
No, I don't think he learned anything. I don't think he just, he's stuck in his mind.
Imply? Do you understand what I'm trying to imply?
Go ahead and just say it directly then.
Okay, I will. I think that he learned that this is a good way for him to generate traffic, and it was more lucrative for him to make the decisions in this fashion. That is sometimes, strong and wrong is can be just as valuable, at least as lucrative as, quiet and right. I don't know. Why doesn't that rhyme? All right, John, go ahead and give us these swing states.
Okay, let's see. So in Wisconsin, Harris leads by 5 points, up by 1.6 in the last 2 weeks. Michigan, 3.5, up by 0.6. Pennsylvania, 2.5, up by 0.6. Nevada, 1.4, up by 1.2. Arizona, 0.8, up by 0.3. North Carolina, 0.4, up by 0.4. Georgia, 0.1, up by 1.7. So I know you talked a lot about Peter Thiel money, but Trump is getting massively outspent in ad buys in swing states, and the obvious path for the Trump campaign seems to be winning in North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Georgia, and if they can win those states, they will win the election.
Pennsylvania seems to be the state. I mean, it has the biggest number of electoral votes, but it seems to be like the big pivot for both the sort of like the Rust Belt strategy and the even some amended version of the Sun Belt strategy. But John, let me just ask you this: it sounds like the trend is all heading up. Are we in all those things? Right? She's ticked up maybe tiny percentage point. All of it seems to be within the margin of error. But so you look, at trends on some level. But are we in a fundamentally different mini era when we get past Labor Day? Like, are we going to start to see to get a better sense of like who's engaging and who's going to come out to vote over the next couple of weeks? A, and B, do we still have that dynamic where if you look at high propensity voters, Harris is doing well, because I know this was true with Biden. If you look at high propensity voters defined by have voted twice within the last 3 national elections, 18, 20, and 22, versus low propensity voters who have voted once or none in the past 3 elections, like, does that dynamic still hold? Trump did better with the low propensity voters. Biden did better with the high propensity voters. Is that the same with the Harris, or do we not know?
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that that Harris is doing. I think that Democratic enthusiasm is higher. Like some of the Insider Advantage polls, which is very much I mean, they tout themselves as being an objective pollster, but they're really not. I can't count them as a biased pollster. And they're some of the Trump had slight leads in almost all of their recent swing state polls. But if you look at people who, the enthusiasm by Democratic voters, it's higher. So I mean, it's. I think that's going to be put into place. But that's the hardest thing to predict, though, is actually how many people are going to turn out, and so I mean, hopefully, it will be another high turnout election, and I mean, Republicans are much more consistent at turning their people out. I mean, not necessarily in presidential years, but in swing states they've done pretty well, and so I mean, there's still a lot of uncertainty, but things are looking better for Harris all the time, and I think that this whole narrative that is put out by Nate Silver, and then you're right, it is picked up on by Republican media figures, like the race is. I mean, it's still very close. Right. I mean, I wouldn't quite call it a coin flip race, but we're getting margin of error. I really don't like that, because, or even saying it's a statistical tie, because it's not. Because if you look at races that are, let's say, tied, or a 1% lead, or a 2% lead, those races, the winner usually, whoever has the lead in those races usually wins. And so, if you have a 3% lead, it's not the same as if it's even. The people who have 3% leads win much more often. And so I don't really like the whole terminology.
Well, when we say statistically speaking, right, I mean, there are two sets of sort of two levels of statistics. You can look at the margin of error within the polls as to say statistically even. But if you look at if you take like a 10,000 foot view, and you look at 5 polls that have, over the course of time, that have that person within the margin of error, statistically speaking, that person wins more often than any individual poll would suggest. In that moment, I guess, is the point you're making. But we should also remind people that Hillary Clinton had 97% chance of winning in 2016. And you can have a situation where 70,000 votes over the course of 5 states could deter, if those 70,000 break in favor of Trump, he could win what we would consider in a modern era a landslide. If those 70,000 break for Kamala Harris, she could win what we would consider a landslide. So,
well, let me just give this data really quickly for you to respond to, John, because we want this video that we clipped to exceed the whatever you said, 375,000 that you brought to this channel. Nice humble brag at the start there. But Target Smart, which is, yes, a democratically aligned polling data firm, last week had numbers showing the data shows registrations up 175.8% among young Black women, 149.7% among young Latinas, 98.4% amongst Black women overall, 85.8% among Black Americans generally, and 83.7% among young women as a whole. So in terms of these numbers and voter registration data, these are all groups that trend towards Harris or weighted towards her quite significantly. How do you factor that into your assessment of the race? Because this is going to be a lagging indicator, but it's also not. These are real people, right? This is data that shows real people making a choice to go and register themselves.
It's not predicting something in the future,
opposed to
it's recording stuff that actually happened.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that those are going to help her the most in Georgia and in North Carolina. And so in those states, women vote, if you look at exit polls, at much higher percentages than men. I believe it was 56 to 44 in Georgia. And also like in Biden won, I believe, I'm trying to going off the top of my head here, but I think by about 15 points in both 2016 and in 2020 in Georgia. And so yeah, that's I think that's why the race has gotten closer in both of those states. And so that's really good news for Democrats, and I think that it's going to definitely help her. And I still think that what happens in southern states is a lot of people end up coming home. That's a term in elections.
Right.
They think about voting for another party, but as they get closer to election day, they end up voting for that party.
And that's because they go home. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, I think that a lot of. I think a lot of it is they talk to friends and family, and they say you're going to vote. Well,
you can still, you're still weighing stuff, but at the end of the day, like more of your information comes from the same place, and everybody's influenced. Like where am I going to go out to eat tonight? I don't know. Am I going to go to that place or this place? But you know what? We always go to Outback Steakhouse. I'm going to go to Outback Steakhouse. I can't decide.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that's happened in the last two elections, I mean, like I had a lot of people said, there's no way, even though the polling had Biden up in 2020, like I had him winning by 1 point. I think he ended up winning by 0.2, and Trump did better in southern states, generally like in Florida and in North Carolina and slightly in Georgia, even though Biden won in Georgia, than what polling averages said. Now, Trump also won Georgia by over 5 points, so that was quite a shift. That doesn't happen very often at all, and so that was good to see. And that also happened in 2022. Republicans outperformed Democrats, polling averages all across the South, with the exception of the Warnock race, and I think that was because Herschel Walker was such a terrible candidate.
All right, last question, John, and then we got to go, because this is not the Letter Hack Show. Just to be clear. Do you have any data on if we were to take a pie graph, let's say, of the 2020 electorate and to slice it up in terms of, let's just do age demographics, okay? Let's say there were 4 cohorts of ages through there. 18 to 34, 34 to 45, 45 to 55, 55 to 65, and over 65. So 5 demographics, or so, however you would do it. Do we know how that pie in those different slices, how big those slices have become of the pie of the electorate? Do you follow me?
Yeah. Well, I mean, generally,
do you
the
have that data? You don't.
Well, no. I mean, I would say generally the cutoff point is, as far as just the 50-50 ratio, would be around 50 years old.
No. But you're missing what I'm saying. 50-50 ratio in terms of a number of voters.
Yeah, as far as number of voters.
Has that gone lower from 2020? If so, by how many years?
Yeah, that's really hard to predict right now, because I mean, like, one thing that I'm concerned about is like how many Gen Z voters are millennials are going to be turned off by what's happening in Gaza and not vote at all. Yeah. I mean, that's a bit of a concern. Also, a lot of Gen Z voters and millennials did not like Biden at all. They didn't like what was happening in the economy, and I think that's completely turned around once Harris has gotten into the race. But as far as actual turnout, I mean, it's always going to be higher. With people in their 60s and the 70s, voting at much higher ratios.
Well, but that's a constant. That's a constant. But
Yeah.
if that pie, if you want to split that pie in half, and over the age of 50 and under the age of 50, if in 2020 it was 13 or 14 people out of, let's say, 20, okay, let's say 100, just to make it easy. If there was 60 people on the half of the pie of 50 and over, and 40 and 50 and under in terms of voters, what I'm really curious about is, do we have a sense of what those numbers are today? And even if we hold for the same turnout rates, because I think we lost a significant, we lost 1 million people between 2020 and 2024. And I would say that 6 or 7 out of 10 of those came from the cohort of 50 and over.
Yeah, I mean, the younger the people vote, I mean, the younger you are, I mean, the better it is for Democrats. And so, I mean that's kind of obvious.
Right.
But
Yes. But my point. But you're evading my question. But that's fine. Maybe we can deal with it next week. I'm not gonna.
I mean,
yeah, I mean, it's just
you have someplace to be, right, John?
It's just really hard to know exactly turnout. I mean, turnout is much harder than actually
I'm not saying predict turnout. I'm just curious if we know that there was a turnout rate of whatever it is in 2020, and we apply that to the actual number of people who are in those cohorts today. We may or may not be correct, but at least we get a apples to apples comparison. We can't predict whether those turnout rates are going to stay the same. But if they were to stay the same, there is an answer there. But apparently you do not have it, John. But I bet you have for Letter Hack tonight. Appreciate the call. We will talk to you again on Tuesday, buddy.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Folks can check out the Letter Hack tonight for John having those numbers. I'm doing pre-interview for the Letter Hack now.
God damn it. I feel so used by John whenever he calls. He just wants those view numbers, and then he goes goes over to the Letter Hack.
And is Ahab journey to take down Nate Silver?
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.